Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 4 of the True North podcast. My name is Benedict Rhodes. Canada climbed back to the top of the women's hockey pyramid at Beijing 2022, winning the gold medal after an undefeated run to the final and outscoring their opponents by nearly 50 goals. On today's episode, Claire Palmer of the Golden Star and Black Press Media joins me to recap the major storylines from the tournament and discuss the future of professional women's hockey here in Canada. I hope you enjoy this great discussion. I'm excited now to be joined by women's hockey aficionado and Red Claws superfan, Claire Palmer. Claire, how are you?
A lot better before you mentioned the rec laws, for sure.
As I mentioned off the top of this show, this episode is all about Canada's win in the women's hockey tournament in Beijing 2022. Claire, you've had a couple of weeks now to sort of digest it, I guess. What are your thoughts on the tournament looking back now, I guess?
Yeah, I thought it was a great tournament. Overall, Canada, USA, they just keep getting better every year. And one of the most impressive Team Canadas we've ever had the privilege to watch, men's and women's. They just dominated the tournament. But even in the kind of lower level teams, we've seen a lot more competitiveness. So overall, you were guaranteed to watch a good game this tournament. And I think especially in the absence of the NHL players on the men's side, it really provided a bright spot throughout the tournament and throughout the Olympics. It was so much fun to watch. And if you missed any of the games, you really missed out.
And throughout this tournament, in the group stage, especially, Canada were just sort of dominating teams. Like there's a couple of games that were like 11 goals, 13 goals, I think at one point. Maybe recapping just the group stage specifically, Canada had a pretty good time of things and then finished it off with a sort of first game against the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the preliminary stage was really where you got to see Canada's depth, especially. They gave Finland one of Finland's worst losses in that program's history. And it's always good to beat the US. And especially, when we first started that Canada-US game in that preliminary stage and you saw the US kind of come out guns a-blazing and Canada managed to go up, I think it was 2-1 in that game at one point. And they cruised to that 4-2 victory. And it really showed how Canada's depth is really not to be matched in this tournament. They were able to score at will. And that's really what set them apart here, was just their ability to shut down good offensive opportunities from the other team, but also capitalize on their own.
And what did you make of the format in the preliminary round? Like, for example, the group stage, like Group A, all 5 teams automatically knew they were going to the next round, but Group B, only 3 of the teams knew. Like, what did you think of that format?
Yeah, I think just where women's hockey is right now, I think it's the best format because you don't end up with, Canada, US playing each other in the quarterfinals and maybe one of them getting out or something like that. Like, it does kind of guarantee that the best teams move on because there is still a little bit of disparity between those top 3 teams, Canada, US, Finland, and the rest of the field. I think in the future, it'd be nice to see it progress to kind of what we're more used to with these international tournaments. And I think a lot of people, that format took them a bit by surprise. But I think for where women's hockey is right now, I think it keeps it competitive and it lets the good teams play each other, which lets them get better. But it also lets the teams that are still developing play the other teams that are still developing so they can get those competitive games and continue to develop their programs.
And jumping ahead now, gold medal game for a minute. You mentioned it, Canada, USA, greatest rivalry in hockey. Canada goes up 3-0, but then the States kind of claw back a little bit. They score a goal and goes into sort of a nervy third period. Like, what are your thoughts going into that final frame?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts at the time of the game was, oh my God, we've got this in the bag, and definitely clenched through that last 20 minutes there. Was not, the US is not a team that you can take lightly. Like they've proven in the past that they can come back. They came back in 2018 when they beat Canada in the shootout. But Canada's also proven that they've got that gold medal caliber. Like they've come back from their own deficits in gold medal games, and they've proven that they can do it. They've got that gold medal drive. So, I think it spoke a lot to Canada's kind of prowess as a team that, even when US was kind of putting on that pressure and really laying it on thick, they were able to still keep them to the perimeter, make sure that they didn't get the highest danger shots, although they did still, get those 2 goals in the third period there. But yeah, I just it was a great game. It's always how you want to see it with Canada, US. You want to see it go down to the wire. So I'm glad that they won, but would have been nice if it stayed 3-0.
After you mentioned the 2018 final, after that game, there's a lot of constant reminders and constant feelings that maybe Canada needed revenge after being denied that gold medal. And I'd imagine, the Americans are feeling the same way right now. So how important is that sort of rivalry and maybe sort of a friendly hatred, I guess, for each other to keep pushing each other forward and we'll probably see them again in that gold medal game in 2026.
Yeah, it definitely pushes the teams to be better. I do recall reading an article, I can't remember where it was, where a Team Canada player said that after that 2018 loss, they all got a clock counting down to the next Olympics when they could finally avenge that shootout loss. And so, that eventually ended up leading to one of the best Team Canadas we've ever seen. So I'm sure Team USA is feeling the same way right now, and hopefully they'll use that to kind of motivate themselves to be better. And if they win in 4 years, then it's Canada's turn to train harder, and so it's just going to keep pushing the two programs to be even better, which in turn pushes Finland to be better, and in turn pushes all the programs to kind of try and raise their level of compete.
And the final was the most viewed event of the Olympics, according to some sources. I think 3 million people on NBC alone in the States. And not to mention the game was at 11 p.m. Eastern time. Like, what are your thoughts about those numbers? And I guess sort of a statement of intent that a vocal minority of people, including a certain Toronto Star columnist, are wrong, that women's hockey doesn't belong at the Olympics and doesn't deserve the same respect as the men's tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this point's been made over and over again, but you would never say that about the basketball tournament in the Summer Olympics, that the US just dominates every year, men's and women's. You would never say that about the men's side of the tournament, where I believe it's three teams have won gold medals over the last 20 years. It's just completely ludicrous to kind of suggest that it doesn't belong, because it is the number one stage and it is where women's hockey kind of gets its most views from, which is a bit of a shame because there is women's hockey going year round between those 4 years. But it belongs there because it is what gets the most eyes on the sport. And an analogy I always use is that it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you show the games, people will watch. And especially in the NHL's absence on the men's side, it's really given a time for these women to shine over the last two Olympics and become like the most viewed events at the Olympics. Hockey is one of the premier events at the Winter Olympics every year, and the women have raised to that, and they've proven that they can provide some world-class entertainment for millions of people, and people do want to watch it.
You mentioned the "if you build it, they will come" sort of mantra, I guess. Like, how important is it now that over the next 4 years, we've been saying this for many years, of course, but especially over the next 4 years, maybe that they keep promoting world championships and all these other games like the Dream Gap Tour and these kind of things, like, to sort of really sort of hammer home now.
Yeah, it's time for all of us to step up. And I think for me personally, after the last Olympics, because right after those last Olympics, I believe it was within a year we saw the CWHL fold. And I think we all kind of took for granted that women's pro hockey existed. And, for me, it was kind of a wake up call that you can't take it for granted, and you do have to go out of your way and you have to support these women. And there's plenty of easy ways to watch the games, like the NWHL, or the former NWHL, the current PHF, has made it incredibly accessible to watch their games on Twitch. I believe they're on TSN now. Like there are ways to support these women. You can go to U Sports and watch games. You can go to your local level teams for the Provincial Women's Hockey League in Ontario. NCAA, it's all televised. So, there are avenues, and it is important to continue to promote these, but, as well, if they're not going to promote it, like us as viewers, if you enjoyed what you saw at the Olympics, you've got to seek it out because it is there, and you can watch all of these players that put on a show play year round.
And yeah, you mentioned the CWHL folding, and we kind of have these two battling organizations, I guess, in the PHF and the PWHPA. What do you think is sort of a realistic, maybe short-term goal for bringing professional women's hockey back to Canada beyond the Toronto Six in the PHF?
Yeah, I think that there just needs to be support for it. There needs to be a movement. I don't think that the PWHPA and the PHF like to see themselves as competing. I do kind of compare it to what's going on with women's basketball because they have the WNBA, but they've also got this new upstart league with Athletes Unlimited. And so there's two women's basketball leagues coexisting kind of in harmony right now, and they're not really in competition. So it would be good to see something like that. It would be good to see some maybe corporate dollars stand up in Canada and say, hey, we want to support a pro women's hockey league that pays a living wage and allows them to do that. And, the PHF has done a great job, and they're looking to expand into Montreal for their next season, which is a really exciting opportunity. But the money just needs to kind of stand up. And I think it's time for some corporations to put their money where their mouth is and say, hey, like we're ready to make this happen.
And you mentioned this kind of, the two organizations don't really say that they're fighting with each other, but there's kind of a stalemate, I guess, maybe in what they're maybe looking for. Like, everyone seems to want a full-time sustainable league, but at the same time, they're not really joining forces. Like, do you think there's a chance that these two join forces eventually, or do you think that they're going to maybe have a Canadian league and an American league, and that's just going to be kind of the way it is?
Yeah, I think, we're still in the early years of women's hockey. It didn't really become formally, it didn't really take off until the 90s, in terms of international competition and seeing like these pro leagues really being pushed forward. So, if you look into the early days of the NHL, it was kind of a similar story. So I do have hope that there will be like a uniform kind of best on best one league, similar to what we see with the NHL on the men's side. Whether it's the PWHPA or the PHF that kind of become that, or a totally new third entity, because we all kind of thought that that's where the CWHL was going. There was an NWHL that lasted for 2 years in the early 2000s. There's always been these iterations, and so I think as long as women are playing hockey, there will be a pro league for them. I don't know if it's going to come between a merger. I don't know if there'll be a third league that kind of starts up, but there is an appetite for it, and I think especially like for me personally, I think it'd be a shame to see Marie-Philippe Poulin's prime wasted, not being played in a best on best pro league where all of the players, like I want to see her play against Michaela Grant-Mentis from the Toronto Six. I want to see Soroya Tanker face off against Hillary Knight. Like I want to see these players compete. There's definitely, I think there is a bit of a stalemate right now, but there is a future for it. And I think, especially considering how successful it was after the Olympics, the time is kind of right to really capitalize off of the momentum here.
And you mentioned as well the potential PHF expansion into Montreal. Like, do you think maybe that we could see an NWSL kind of soccer style model, or maybe expansion into Canada? Like maybe 2 or 3 teams is probably maybe the best way in the short term to kind of just get teams off the ground and get teams going.
Yeah, that's something that I would love to see. And I'd love to see the WNBA come to Toronto as well, especially because the WNBA is so interlinked and, tied with the NBA. If you've got a Toronto team, like you might as well. For an NWSL team, I think it's time that it comes to Canada, or at the very least, to see like the Canadian Premier League step up and have their own kind of women's side to the men's side, like have that joint kind of operation there that you see quite often with like the Champions League in Europe. Like there is precedent for this, and I don't understand why in Canada we don't have pro leagues, because especially the women's soccer team was the most watched event in Canada for the Summer Olympics. I don't see why people aren't standing up and trying to capitalize off this momentum.
And what about leagues in Europe as well? Like you mentioned, like Finland stepped up over the last couple of years. They won a bronze medal in Beijing. Like, how do you think having a strong North American league, or a strong ecosystem anyway, might help sort of boost hockey in other countries as well, and kind of get other leagues off the ground for players in other countries as well, of course?
Yeah, I think, having more leagues in competition with each other, I mean, especially if you don't have one that's paying a living wage, it's not exactly feasible for players from Finland to come over to North America and develop here if they have to have a second job to do that, So I think that being an option would also require the Finnish league to, properly pay their players. It's just that it's the tide that raises all boats. If you have one thing, it's gonna force everyone else to kind of raise to that level. But it would be interesting to see, a women's league take off in Europe. Like there are quite a few. There's like there's a Russian league. There's a Swedish league that we see. I believe Alina Mueller plays in. I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on that. But you are seeing great players emerge from these European leagues, and it would be great to see the same thing happen in North America for sure.
And another interesting part of this Olympics where China had a team for the first time. We saw the players from the Kunlun Red Star women's team coming in and playing for their national team. And do you think that there's a chance we see maybe them play in the future Olympics and maybe start to invest in their program more now that we've had a taste of it, a home Olympics, and there seems to be some interest. They were pretty good in some games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to see that program take a step forward. I know that they have actually been putting some money into it. I remember from my own minor hockey days, the Chinese national team came over and they played our PWHL team, the Aurora Panthers at the time. And so they came to Canada, they trained here, and then they did a tour of some of our higher level teams to play just to kind of get that experience. And I think like we've proven that there is an appetite in China for the game, and they're producing good players, although I know that their goalie is a Canadian. So, I don't know if they'll want me to really promote that, but we are seeing kind of the game rise there, and man, I would really love to see it take off in kind of non-traditional demographics, especially ones that maybe men's hockey hasn't really solidified itself in. I think that's a wide open market for women's hockey, and it's exciting to see it take off.
And going back to this tournament in particular as well, like there was some adversity during the tournament on the ice as well. Like Melly Dao, for example, had an injury at one point, and Canada to play with N95 masks on after a COVID issue with the ROC. What does it say about sort of the resilience of this team? We've mentioned the league, we've mentioned other ways they've been resilient? Like, what does it keep showing you that the way these women play?
Yeah, I think that resiliency, it's a good word, but also passion. Like these women really do play for the love of the game. And it's what you want in sports, you know. It's the reason why March Madness takes off. It's not playing for the millions of dollars, you know, they're playing for the love of the game and simply for the drive to compete, which adds, I think, a nice level of depth to the tournament and to these women's teams because they really do, they play with their heart on their sleeves and they play with such a drive that it's impressive. And yeah, like the adversity that they overcome, it makes them better, and it really makes you love the team even more, you know. Like the American side as well, they had to overcome their own problems with Brianna Decker going out for the whole tournament in their first game, and it like something like that really brings a team together, and it's just so compelling to watch them kind of do that together as a team. And so yeah, I don't know how much else I can say about how impressive it is that these women just continue to play, and they do so, and they get better, and they're pushing the programs forward of their own volition because there isn't that money necessarily backing it up like you do on the men's side.
Yeah, unfortunately for Brianna Decker, she was right behind Marie Pouliot when she scored the winning goal.
Yeah, like hello darkness, my old friend, playing in her head. Looks scarred.
Gold medal aside, what was your highlight of the tournament?
Oh man, highlight of the tournament. It's got to be the Poulin game winning goal again. Like I can't say enough about how much I love Poulin. She's, you know, when I first started playing hockey in 2010, I went and I got to watch her score 2 goals. Well, I didn't get to go in person, but on the TV with my first ever hockey team, watched her score 2 goals. And it's just been such a pleasure to watch her career take off. And just seeing her get the gold medal hat trick was, I was at a bar here in Golden and I just like screamed my head off. I was like, I can't believe it. And everyone's looking at me like I'm the weirdo. And I'm like, how are you guys not freaking out? But also just seeing the emergence of the rookies was another highlight for me. Like Sarah Fillier, not enough can be said about how promising she is. And Claire Thompson, I feel like, you know, she got some coverage, but she flew a little bit under the wire there with the fact that she was a plus 23 the whole tournament and had like 11 points as a defenseman, as a rookie defenseman. So it's really impressive to see how they rose to the challenge at an Olympics with limited international experience.
And one name we've somehow gone like 15 minutes without mentioning is Sarah Nurse, right? Like she led the tournament in scoring, I believe set the record for most points and most assists in the tournament. Like, what can you say about her anymore? Like she's just completely gone off the charts in that tournament.
Yeah, I feel bad for Darnell Nurse and kind of Keena Nurse, where it's like, man, both of them are so impressive, but like they're minor storylines. Darnell Nurse, who's like the down the rung of impressive athletes in his family, despite the fact that he himself is an NHL player. Like, it's crazy.
Before I let you go, rapid fire round. I'll ask you 5 questions. I want you to give me first answer that comes to mind, and in some cases, why you picked that answer. Okay.
Okay.
First one: which Canadian player was the most underrated in Beijing?
Oh man. You know what? This is going to be a bit of controversial, but I'm going to say Anne Renee Desbiens because people were talking about how great she played, but I don't think we can talk enough about how great she played considering how Canada dominated the games. Like, obviously we know she played well against the US, but she played so well against all the other teams that she almost flew under the wire.
I'm gonna go for Claire Thompson. I think she was amazing on the blue line. You said plus 23, I think, and some big points. And again, looks like another one who's going to be someone to watch for many years to come still. Mm-hmm. Second one, who stalked Rose in Beijing? Similar vein, I guess.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Who stalked Rose in Beijing?
Who stalked Rose?
Yeah.
Definitely Jamie Lee Rattray. Yeah. Just like came in as a 4th line player, subbed in for Daou, you know, really proved herself to be an invaluable kind of just everyman person that could play where she needed to be and rose to the challenge every game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Desbiens. Like you mentioned, like we knew she was a solid goalie, but I think she kind of became a household name at some parts in the tournament to a level, like you said, that maybe she wasn't there before she was in Beijing. Which players on other teams impressed you? There aren't non-Canadians. Like, who were some of the names that sort of stood out to you?
Alina Mueller, always from Switzerland, always impresses me, and I'm really impressed with the steps that program has taken, and she's been a big part of that. So I think that's a name that you all should be paying more attention to.
For sure. You did this a couple of times already, but do you think this was the best version of Team Canada we've ever seen? And if so, why or why not?
Absolutely. It's just the way they dominate games, the way they hold themselves, their poise, their confidence. it's a perfect mix of, Poulin, the veterans hitting the primes of their careers, but also young rookies coming up right behind them. Yeah, there's just so many things going right for them. The depth is insane. The goaltending's there. Just there's not a complaint that I have about the team.
And last one, after the gold medal game, you tweeted, millions of years the Earth has existed, and somehow we were all blessed to exist at the same time as Marie-Philippe Poulin. You mentioned her a couple of times already as well. Like, is she the greatest women's hockey player of all time? And yes or no? And why not?
It's hard to say because she's still, we're still probably going to get another Olympics out of her, maybe 2 if we're lucky. She's only 30, 31. I think she could well be on her way to becoming the best women's hockey player of all time. It's, she's up against Haley Wickenheiser and Angela James. And so it's a tough kind of crown to take away from them. But I think she's well on her way to doing it. Just, there's no one more clutch than her. And like, that's where you really see it. It's just her poise in the big moments. She's just unbelievable. And I think we really do need to take a moment to just appreciate the fact that we get to watch her work magic when we get to watch her play.
And I believe it's a goal in 4 straight gold medal games, not to mention the winning goal in the World Championships as well. Like, she's definitely in that conversation.
Yep. And in their 3 gold medals, all the game winners came off her stick. Just insane.
Claire, thanks for coming on the show. And is there anything you want to plug or maybe tell people where they can follow you online maybe?
Yeah, thanks for having me. You can follow me in my work on Twitter. Claire Pomster is my handle. If you're interested in local BC politics, you can follow the Golden Star, although I don't think there's a lot of crossover between Olympic coverage and local government town council.
Perfect. Everyone go drop a follow. And Claire, thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Thank you again to Claire Palmer for being today's fantastic guest on the True North podcast. If you like this and want to be the first person to listen to future episodes, as well as receive all new written stories directly into your inbox, you can subscribe for free at truenorthsports.substack.com. You can also follow True North on Twitter at TrueNorth_sports and on Instagram at TrueNorthSport. My name is Benedict Rhodes, and thank you for listening to episode number 4. I'll see you next time.